If you look at the biggest growers in your industry, like let's just call it what it is. There's Chipotle, there's Cava, and that's who I compete with on the Dave side for real estate. And then you've got on the beverage side, you've got the Starbucks, the McDonald's, and then newer guys like Dutch Bros and Seven Brews and such. To me, it's a fourth. I look at four things when I'm doing a deal. First, the rent. Does the rent make sense or not? And if it does, you move forward. The next thing is that some of those other players with the Chipotles and Cavas, they've got personal guarantees, or they've got corporate guarantees, and I've got personals, right? We've got personals, and then we've got our corporate through it. So it's what does that guarantee structure look like? As a landlord, you want to make sure you make your money back. But we've got some landlords that want their money back and more, and we'll automatically walk away from that. We're going to limit our guarantee because we're going to make sure we make you whole, but we're not going to leave ourselves exposed forever.
How are franchisees dealing with the current operating environment? Hello, this is Jonathan Mays, Editor-in-Chief of Restaurant Business. And in this week's episode of A Deeper Dive, I speak with Raj Patel, a franchisee out of the Chicago area. Patel's group operates nearly 100 Dunkin locations and a number of Dave's Hot Chicken locations, among other restaurant chains. We wanted to talk with him to get a franchisee's perspective on the current operating environment, which, if you have read anything recently about restaurants, you know is very difficult. He provides some insight from a franchisee's perspective on both of those brands and why they are both doing very well right now. He also talks about what makes them tick. But we also talk extensively about development strategies. Raj provides some really interesting insight into competition for restaurant real estate right now. We talk about what sites cost more, whether drive-thru-only locations make any sense right now, and the best time to walk away from a potential new site. We're talking restaurant development and franchising on A Deeper Dive, so please check it out. Okay, I am here with Raj Patel. Raj, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. So why don't you just start off by telling us who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So obviously name's Raj Patel, based in Chicago, Illinois, more so Naperville, Illinois, a Western burb. I'm on the franchisee side. I am a franchisee. Largest brand is Dunkin. We've also got several Dave's, McAllister's Delis, Tide Dry Cleaners, and Corritos. Probably we're going to be opening up our 100th Dunkin later on this year, in October. We've got 19 Dave's, 6 McAllisters, and 1 Corrito.
All right. Very good. When did you get into the business?
So I joined the business in 2010. My dad had 8 Dunkins when I jumped in, and he was kind of deciding whether he was going to go or stop. And he was living the good life. He didn't really need much more, but then, there's a lot of fun and growth. So we took off, and here we are.
Did he have to talk you into it, or how did you decide to join?
Well, it was interesting. So I went to school for accounting and finance. I graduated in 2010, so I was in litigation consulting because obviously with the 08-09 downturn, a lot of stuff was being litigated, and then banks were coming in, taking away a bunch of businesses. And I did that for about 2 weeks before I realized that's no fun. You're taking things away from people. Everyone's upset. So at that point, some of the Dunkin' people had gone over to Jersey Mike's, and Jersey Mike's was in play. So I made the jump. We opened up Jersey Mike's and we took off, and eventually we sold off the Jersey Mike's and jumped back onto the Dunkin' side.
All right. How long was your father in Dunkin' before you joined?
My dad bought his first restaurant when I was like 6 months old. So he had been in the brand for, I don't know, 20 years at that point, 25 years at that point. So a long time.
So he was in the brand, and then he decided to buy his own store when you were 6 months old, and then
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he didn't scare you away from the business at all.
Dunkin's a legacy brand. There's so many people that started in the brand as whether they started as bakers or started as employees or whatever the exact path was. And everyone, and it's a funny story to say, everyone in Dunkin' doesn't realize how good they have it with Dunkin'. I mean, there's no better brand in my eyes right now when you look at legacy brands and what they're doing than Dunkin'. So, the marketing handles itself. You're not having to go out and fight for customers. People love the brand. I mean, I don't know a brand that's more loved than Dunkin' in the franchise world. So, no, it didn't take long for me to jump in. Again, I started off on the Jersey Mike's side, loved everything about the Jersey Mike's brand, but then it was a pure money thing. We just didn't have enough money at that point to be doing both at the same time. Dunkin' was on a complete tear at that point, growth-wise, and jumped onto this side, and we kind of went.
Yeah, I think Dunkin' is a fascinating. I tend to think it's a fascinating brand that doesn't really get some of the credit that it actually deserves. Because if you think about brands that made a really cool pivot historically, Dunkin' is right up there. Because like it was a donut chain for a long time, right?
Yeah,
It
it
was
was.
outside of New England, it was really known basically just for its donuts. And then it really just focused more. I mean, it's obviously still a donut place, don't get me wrong, but like then it just started focusing a lot more on beverages and kind of pivoted like that. And that's really been what's taken that brand from, largely a regional concept into pretty much what it is today. So I don't think it quite gets the credit that it deserves. It's a good brand.
No, I agree with you. And, back in the day, it was the hot, black hot coffee, cream and sugar hot coffee drinker. We still lead the industry in iced coffee. And then we went to espresso, and now we're doing the refreshers and such. I mean, we pivoted, and I mean, it goes on both sides. The franchisees and the franchisors. Things have been good.
You sell more cold beverages these days than hot, or where are you at on that?
Oh, it's tight. It is tight. If you take into the entire category, it's pretty close. But I mean, our core customer is still that hot coffee drinker, and we continue to innovate and continue to attract complete new guests. But we were born on the hot coffee. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's been one of the another interesting trend is how people have shifted to cold
well, and
coffee
I'm in
here and
Chicago,
there.
so Chicago is one of the larger hot coffee markets in the country. I think out east you see a lot more iced coffee being sold. I guess you got some pretty bad weather too, but for us, the hot coffee still, the bread and butter.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm in Minnesota, and Minnesota is definitely a hot coffee market for sure.
Yeah,
But
yeah, definitely.
um, I mean, it's too cold too often to drink cold coffee, in my opinion. Anyway, so when did you get into Dave's Hot Chicken?
So I got into Dave's when there was one unit. I want to say that was 18. So got in with one unit and kind of have seen what's unfolded here over the last 5 years.
I want to ask you why you were in there really early.
Yeah.
Explain that.
I'm not going to sit here and say, I knew everything that was going to happen and it was going to be the brand it is today. You don't, right? When I joined, we've jumped in and out of brands in the past. Jersey Mike's is probably an anomaly where I think Jersey Mike's leadership has always been great. Other brands that have not had the leadership and the franchisor dynamics. So when we're looking at other brands, really we're looking at the product and we're looking at the leadership. So I always go back to my brands. Dunkin', I mean, Scott Murphy. Scott Murphy's, as good as it gets. He's not good. He's great. And he is a lot of the reason that we can continue to make some of these pivots that you're talking about today and continuing to stay relevant. And his relationship that we have. On the Dave side, when I went in there, the product's as good as it gets. I don't think there's a better product in the industry. And when you look at Bill Phelps and Jim, there is a level of comfort. Bill was there. He had kind of been mentioned he's going to be bringing some of his people in. And then I think Bill and Jim they really have guided us to where we are today with, I think we're 350-ish restaurants, insane AUVs. It's an anomaly, but you're lucky at times, right? You find a brand that has really good food. I followed the playbook that we always have: good food, good leadership, and it worked out. It doesn't always work out, but in this case, it did.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's trying to figure out who's going to be a winner and loser in this business. It might be the single toughest thing. Just about anything. Like, I mean, it's a question people ask all the time. What's the next hot concept? I can't really tell you. Most of the time, I just absolutely can't until it's gotten to a certain point. I could tell you a million times, even many brands that get to a couple of hundred units flame out because whatever reason, things that people didn't necessarily see. It's really one of those toughest things. It's almost like gambling, I think, especially if you get that, if you get in early.
Well, and that's a thing, but that's where you can also get the biggest reward at the end, right? I mean, you've got the most territory available. You're able to help shape the brand. It's kind of all the minds coming together. The thing that Dave's did that was different than anyone else I've seen at the time is they brought in existing multi-unit franchisees. So you had to know the system. And I think on the other end, they knew the system because they had done it before at Wetzel's and Blazed. So I think there are some synergies going there. But again, you can ask them. I mean, they knew they had a great product. I don't know if anyone can sit there and say they knew this is going to be a $3 million AUV brand across the country. So I don't know if there's anyone. I didn't think so when I joined. I'll be the first one to say that. But it's executed.
Yeah. It is such a fascinating brand. Absolutely fascinating. But I mean, I guess to your point about the management team is really pretty crucial. And Bill and Jim, I mean, those guys have done it before. They have a track record. So it had all the ingredients, but again, you still don't know. There's a lot of competition in the chicken market today, especially for hot chicken these days. It is pretty insane. So that's fascinating. Now you have one of your locations in Chicago is fascinating. It's
Yeah.
got to be one of the coolest chain restaurants I've ever seen. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so this location you're talking about is Ontario and Wells in River North. It was the original Al's Beef. There was a change in ownership. I don't know the whole story of what all happened there, but it was a legacy location in Chicago. When we saw that it was available, we tried to jump on it right away. Someone beat us to it, and some things happened there, and we ended up, with the deal. The unique thing is that there's a 3-story hotel right behind the location that had this wall that was just completely beaten up. And, I think most of the listeners will know that Dave's is known for its art and its graffiti vibe. So we were negotiating with the landlord. The landlord had some access rights with the hotel, and we were able to put a deal together where not only did we get the graffiti and art on our location, we were able to basically put a huge Dave up on the hotel wall. So there's a 3-story hotel. I don't know how wide it is, probably a couple hundred feet. Right behind the location. It makes for that, that trophy location that everyone hopes for. And, the trophy locations don't always work out when it comes to the financial aspect, but this one's been really good.
Really? They don't always work out? What do you mean by that?
Well, the rents are high when you're doing these deals, right? They cost a lot of money. You're in Maine in the city. A lot of eyes on you. So you've got to do the volume. And, when you see a location like this, you're hoping you do the volume. You think you can. And luckily we are.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think some of those big eye-popping locations sound great, but you need to temper some of your expectations if you're going to probably build something like that because, the cost is really high and I don't think it's really guaranteed that you're going to get the sales that you expect out of it.
I think more times than not, you don't. Right. I think that you're there because it's a billboard. Like I always bring up Times Square. I don't know anything about the sales there, but I know those rents are a couple $1 million a year. So I don't know how you make money at those numbers, but I'm sure some do and a lot don't.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I would imagine some of them are pretty much loss leaders, or you don't necessarily you're not going there to fully make a profit, especially somewhere like Times Square.
Right.
Because you're right, it is extremely expensive. Of course, Times Square also has insane traffic and a lot of people, just insane. I mean, gosh, you go there these days and some days you can't even get yourself through. So,
right.
But depending on what you build and that sort of thing. So like if you're looking, so the current economy right now is really challenged. What are your biggest concerns right now as an operator?
There's just a lot of competitors entering right now. And they're paying big dollars on rents, and there's so little second generation real estate available. You're having to pay. We're lucky where we've got a majority of our portfolio that we built over the last 10 to 15 years where I put normal rents. The new normal today is not normal 5 years ago. So you're having to come out, when you're talking about new growth, it's a whole different equation than it was 5 years ago. So that's what I'm most concerned about on the development side. The numbers don't always pencil, so you've got to be smart when to say no, because you've got competitors willing to pay the number. And then on the other side, when you're looking at the straight macro conditions of whether you look at the breakfast segment with Dunkin or you look at the chicken segment with Dave's, I was talking to somebody this morning. I'm lucky because both of my brands are on a complete tear. Dave's has got huge comps. Dunkin has got huge comps right now. And Dunkin's in a legacy market and we're doing great. So, things are going well for us and we're basically, and you've seen our competitors announcing earnings. It's not the same everywhere.
No, it isn't. So I want to get back to this development side because you've got two issues that I think are really important. The development side, that's fascinating. So you're saying that people are coming in and offering high rents. I would imagine in your competitive sets, chicken and beverages are two, hot.
Well, the hottest
areas right now. Yeah. So I would imagine that's exactly what's going on, but you got competitors that are basically overpaying for sites.
In their eyes, it may not be an overpayment. They're trying to come into a market that's been saturated by us already. So, they do deals a little differently. A lot of the competitors that we're dealing with, I mean, the two big chicken guys and a couple of the aggressive coffee players, it's all land leases and things along those lines. And yeah, they're paying a big number. So they have to do the volumes. And in certain cases when we do I guess stray from our normal development cycle, we have to as well. So it's different. Um, you drive down Chicago today, you don't see very many strip centers being built. So you're having to go in and develop on your own, or you're taking on these land leases that all these brands are kind of coming in. The newer brands are coming in and kind of paying.
Right. And you're building a lot of drive-throughs, right?
Yeah, I'd say on the Dunkin side, it's nothing but drive-throughs. We probably build anywhere between 5 and 10 Dunkin units a year between our markets. And I think, we started some of these drive-thru-onlys and such, but we were mainly our 2,000 square foot prototype. And on the Dave side, we've done a couple development deals that are drive-throughs, but we're aggressively looking for second generation spaces or those end caps to kind of jump into there. Not as much freestanding stuff, just because if we can find an end cap, it's going to be significantly better on the economic side.
Mm-hmm. Can Dave's work really well without a drive-through still?
Yeah, I mean, I've got 19 units. I've probably got 5 drive-throughs. People travel for Dave's. It's crazy. I link it back to being in the Dunkin' world. I link it back to what Krispy Kreme was whenever they come to new markets. People are driving everywhere for the donut, And I think that what Chick-fil-A did whenever they came to Chicago, people are driving everywhere. So I think that today, when you look at who the Dave's customer is, they drive. They will come find you as long as you're in the right location. And they don't mind waiting. Dunkin', we're as fast as can be at the Dave's side. They just want the best quality product possible. Not saying we don't do that at Dunkin'. We absolutely do that at Dunkin', but it's a beverage, which is a lot faster to make than it is at Dave's with some chicken.
My concern, I think, on the development side is that a lot of these brands, a lot of mistakes have been made over the years. In fact, we just went through a period in which the number of bankruptcies in the industry was really elevated. And a lot of those bankruptcies came from some of these, some formerly high growth brands that had private equity money and were really pushing very aggressive growth, and then end up signing expensive leases for real estate they thought would work, and it never did. And then they end up flailing out later on. I mean, to me, that initial, when you're signing a lease for something, you are signing a lease. You are basically putting what amounts to be long-term debt on your location. You have to make that location work, not just in the next couple of years, but 10 years down the line. I just never understand why some companies will go into a site and sign aggressive leases like that. I know they think it works now, but you don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now. That's my concern. My little soapbox rants.
I agree with you, and it happens everywhere, and it continues to happen. And I think that I always go the second you stray from your model, meaning like I've got a box of here are my criteria for sites, and I'm not going to bend. And landlords, some of them hate it. They're like, hey, well, we're going to go with this guy instead, and we just let them go. But you're right. It's a game where you've got the lease liability, and then you've got your debt. You keep your debt in line, you're fine. But obviously, that's pending that you're not overpaying for the real estate.
Right. Now, all of these competitors, so far, both of your brands are kind of withstanding an intense amount of competition, though. I mean, you're saying that Dunkin', and you're not the only person from Dunkin' that has told me that Dunkin' is doing exceptionally well right now. And we know Dave's has been just an amazing story. But so you're not really feeling that competition, or are you? What's going on?
I don't want to jinx it, but we're feeling the competition. We're watching the competition because in the markets I'm in, there's competitors coming in all over. But that first comment I get back to is the second that franchisor relationship strong, they hear what we're saying, we hear what they're saying. And it's happening in both of these brands. And I can dive into 100 different examples of how we've been able to navigate competitors entering your market or us taking market share from legacy brands that have other products, right, that we are trying to jump into. But it's been, you feel them, but, comps are great. And then the crazy thing is comps are good. Transactions are strong. And I think that's the big look, right? Because there's certain things you got to do with pricing. On the Dunkin' side, we've got a great value platform right now. Refreshers are absolutely cranking in the summer. So it's fun.
Huh.
But no, I mean, the second you take your eye off the ball is whenever things fall off. And I think even though things are going well right now, we know what's going on in the rest of the industry. So it's how do we get even better? I always joke. I walk into the room so I'm on the franchise council at both brands, but at the Dave side, I walk into the room and I go, all right, how are we getting to 3.5? How are we getting to 4 million? Right. That's what we should be focused on, not how we stay at 3. And I think that's what that team does is we're trying to push the envelope at all times.
Mm-hmm. So, what's working at Dunkin' right now? Like, what specifically is why is that brand? Because it's been doing pretty well for the past couple of years for sure.
I think the number one thing is that the core of the brand. Most emerging brands you've got to market, right? The core of our brand is still the operations. We're still quick. No matter what competitors you look at, we're the fastest. We give you a quality product, and we give you what you want. I think that's where we start. Then I think it's a continuous beverage innovation combined with the value. So, we've released an entire new refresher line, got a couple energy drinks in there. We've got a huge snacking platform. We got the wake up wraps, we've got the stuffed bagels, all those types of things. And I think what we have up on our competitors there is we've got, just as good, if not better product than them, combined with some really good food. And you put all of that together and you give it to them really quickly, that's a sign of a winner. And if every brand that we're talking about competitor wise, their main customers, that millennial, that Gen Zer, we have, like I said, we are that hot coffee core. I can tell you, we're appealing to the millennial Gen Z more than anybody. I've got young kids, but my kids are at a dance studio over here, and every time I walk into there, they're like, "Oh, we love the wake up wrap offer," or, that refresher Sabrina's so cool. And these are all, that female consumer that everyone wants. And I'm getting it just walking into a dance studio, and that just shows that, hey, they're getting the message. So we're pivoting and we're sticking to our core while we innovate on everything else. So that's the best answer I have, because everyone else is struggling to do it, but we've apparently cracked the formula.
Right. Well, I tend to think that Scott, you mentioned Scott Murphy, and I tend to think that he was one of the more underappreciated executives in this business. I think he's done a tremendous job over there.
Scott's fantastic. There's not one franchisee in the Dunkin' system. We know when you care, meaning the franchisees know when the franchisor cares. There's franchisors out there that are worried about them. I don't walk into a meeting with Scott where he always tries to understand our side of the table before he makes any decisions. And when they care and they care, we're going to be willing to work harder for them as well and, take on some of the things. So completely agreed. He is the most underrated in the industry for sure, but I also think he's one of the best. So won't be underrated very long because, these Dunkin' numbers are strong.
Really? Yeah. So now you mentioned you've built a couple of drive-thru-only locations. Is that something you're going to continue to do, or you or not?
It's going to be depending on the trade area. So the drive-thru-onlys have gone into, swatches of our other stores. So if we've got 5 or 6 Dunkins in the area and there's a street we're not hitting or an area we're not hitting, and it's a smaller piece of land, yeah, we'll continue to do that. There's not a huge cost savings anymore doing the drive-thru-onlys versus the full expression, just because most of your cost is tied up in the site work when we're developing them. So there's not a huge cost savings there. So it's really going to be a case-by-case basis on what's around it before we make a decision on if we're going to go drive-thru-only or full prototype.
Really? You're not saving that much cost? I thought that was one of the reasons. I mean, one of the reasons we're seeing a lot of brands go drive-thru-only with these drive-thru-only concepts is because they think that the unit economics are better.
Well, so for me, I develop my line when I go drive-thru-only. So let's say you're building the box, you're taking out the tables, the tile, probably a bathroom, and another 300 square feet, right? At the end of the day, a little less HVAC and stuff. But if I've got $300,000 in land cost, whether it comes excavation, sewer, or anything along those lines, the tile and the tables are very minimal overall. So, we've got, I don't know, close to 800 Dunkins in Chicago. We're trying to find the right sites right now, and we'll go in based on however we do it. In my other market in Indiana, I'm almost exclusively 2,000 square foot prototypes when we're developing. But when we go into someone else's building or we go into a strip center, we'll try to push the boundaries a little bit, get down to 17 or 1,800.
Mm-hmm. Are you see people come inside Dunkin's more away from the drive-thru? I mean, it seems like we were all excited about drive-thru-only concepts, drive-thru-only locations, except for those brands that started that way. Yeah. Like your Dutch Bros and your Seven Brews and whatnot. But I've seen some evidence that people are going back. Well, I mean, there is evidence. People are going back inside restaurants and not into the drive-thru as much. And then mobile order and delivery is kind of taking away some of that. Are you seeing that at Dunkin'?
Yeah, I'm seeing a mixed bag. So I've got maybe two non-drive-through locations left in our portfolio. And when I walk into those restaurants, you've got that black coffee, cream and sugar, hot coffee drinker sitting there, and they're talking all morning, right? So we haven't lost that customer, or that customer's never gone away, really, on the Dunkin side. But what I would say, and I don't have numbers to back this up, that the Gen Zers and the millennials, I still think, want to take their coffee and go. I think when you're looking at that customer that's a little older, I think they're coming in more. And then I can say on the weekends, we do still sell donuts, right? And when the kids are picking out donuts and stuff, they want to come in. So does it sway my opinion on, hey, you need a bigger lobby or not? No. Dunkin's been, when you're a donut shop as well, even though we're a beverage company, kids are going to want to come in and pick out their donuts. So, not a complete answer, but not much has changed. I mean, on the Dave side, they'll walk in. Yeah, we're not seeing, and we do need the seats. Dave's isn't a brand that you can build 1,000 square foot box. People want to eat their chicken there. They want to hang out. They like the vibe. They like the music and the art and everything along those lines.
Yeah. I mean, the ambiance in a Dave's Hot Chicken is pretty. You definitely want to eat there. I would completely agree.
Yeah.
So one last real question. So I'm sure you have development needs and things like that. So how do you, if you're encountering a situation in which look, these costs are too high, I mean, how do you know when to say no and say, all right, we're just not gonna, we're gonna look for another place or another location to put a Dunkin' because this is too much?
So if you look at the biggest growers in your industry, let's just call it what it is. There's Chipotle, there's Cava, and that's who I compete with on the Dave side for real estate. And then you've got on the beverage side, you've got, the Starbucks, the McDonald's, and then newer guys like Dutch Bros and Seven Brews and such. To me, it's a fourth. I look at four things I'm doing a deal. First, the rent. Does the rent make sense or not? And if it does, you move forward. The next thing is that some of those other players with the Chipotles and Cavas, they've got personal guarantees, or they've got corporate guarantees, and I've got personals, right? We've got personals, and I can, and then we've got our corporate through it. So it's, what does that guarantee structure look like? As a landlord, you want to make sure you make your money back. But we've got some landlords that, want their money back and more, and we'll automatically walk away from that. We're going to limit our guarantee because we're going to make sure we make you whole. But we're not going to leave ourselves exposed forever, because you do see what you just said with some other brands some legacy brands having some bankruptcies. And then you look at your work letter and your TI. If that entire model works, you move forward. And sometimes you bend, but you don't bend. You bend on one out of the four. But that's all I look at. And on the Dave side, we're growing pretty aggressively. The last 6 months, we're probably one a month. It's not slow, but it's fast. But again, if it doesn't work, I can tell you, we've walked away from deals, and the landlord's gone to one of the other bigger guys. But you pick up the phone, you get to talk to me. When you look at these bigger brands here, you're kind of trying to figure out who's who. And we saw that initially on the Dunkin side as well, but now you see it a lot on the Dave side when you're going for those end caps. They kind of like the local operator in the end cap because they can talk to you directly. And landlords are different levels. They buying and holding, or they selling. Buy and hold guys will usually come to people like me. The sellers are always going to want that big corporate guarantee because that's what they think is worth the most. It's a game and it's fun. It's always like trying to put a whole puzzle together. But once you've got the model, I always go, don't stray. You've got to stay on it. And the second you do is when things usually go wrong.
Superb. That's a great way to end. Raj, I really appreciate you joining me on the podcast.
No, thanks for having me. Great talking.
And that should do it for this week's episode of A Deeper Dive, which was edited, as always, by Spoons. Artwork by Nico Hines. You may find this and other episodes of the podcast on our website at www.restaurantbusinessonline.com/article/deeper-dive. But please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jonathan Mays, your host, podcast producer, and the editor-in-chief of Restaurant Business. Thank you for listening.